The night stretched endlessly across the land of U. The sky was a velvet ocean of deep, patient blue, the kind that seemed to hum softly, like the breath of a sleeping god. The candy lights of the distant kingdom shimmered faintly, but no laughter echoed through its streets. Somewhere beyond the whispering meadows and crystalline rivers, the candy kingdom stood untouched, serene, and silent. A soft wind wandered through the wild grass, carrying the scent of sugar and old stories. With the stars, bright and restless, gathered above as though expecting something, someone, to rise, sword in hand, to fulfill an old rhythm. But no hero came that night. No shout of bravery split the air. For in this quiet imagining, Finn the human never saved Princess Bubblegum. Imagine the delicate balance of this world, a place born of color and chaos, where every heart seemed to beat in rhythm with adventure. The forest sang of strange creatures, and even the stones remembered laughter. But now, without that one act of rescue, a stillness had spread like twilight through every corner. Princess Bubblegum remained where she was, captured not by malice, but by fate's own inertia. She lingered in the castle of some forgotten villain, whose motives dissolved like dreams in the morning. Perhaps Ice King never found the courage to kidnap her this time. Perhaps she was lost instead to the weight of her own intellect, wandering deeper into her experiments until she was trapped by their consequence. And Finn never set out to save her. He remained at the edge of the Candy Kingdom, watching the sunrise paint the gumdrop towers in gold. There was no call to adventure, no cry for help. The universe waited for his heart to spark, but he simply listened to the wind and felt, for the first time, what it was to not be needed. What happens to a hero when the story does not summon him? When destiny takes a breath and decides gently to rest, Finn was still the same boy, bright-eyed, full of restless curiosity. But without that first moment of rescue, the shape of his life bent differently. Instead of drawing his sword, he built small fires by the riverside. Instead of charging into battle, he fed ducks and watched the ripples on the water. He spoke to Jake in slow, meandering tones. "Jake," he said one afternoon, tracing shapes in the mud, "do you ever feel like we were supposed to do something and just forgot what it was?" Jake stretched lazily beneath a candy apple tree, yawned, and said, "Maybe that's the point, dude. Maybe forgetting's part of the gig." Their laughter drifted between them, small, easy, and tinged with the quiet ache of unrealized purpose. Pause. Without the rescue, the world did not break. It simply grew softer. Princess Bubblegum's absence from the kingdom created a stillness, a contemplative pause. The candy people wandered about without direction, but without despair. They lived in a kind of gentle confusion, continuing their routines because they remembered how, not because they understood why, and somewhere within her silent laboratory, PB sat surrounded by glass vials and flickering lights, her face reflected infinitely in their surfaces. She thought of equations and galaxies, of time bending around choice. Somewhere she must have felt that something, or someone, was missing. A thread not pulled, a destiny untouched, yet she didn't mourn it. Not quite. She felt the faint hum of peace, the still vibration of a world untouched by chaos or rescue. Perhaps she wondered in her quiet way if safety could exist without struggle. If you listen closely, you might hear the land breathe. It is the sound of waiting. The mountains whisper to one another in stone tongues, wondering why no footprints mark their snowy crowns. The oceans murmur secrets to the moon, who hangs low and wide, reflecting every unrealized adventure. Even the grass seems to lean toward the horizon, as if straining to glimpse the boy who never came, for this is not a tragedy. Not yet. It is a pause in the eternal rhythm of heroism. It is the moment before the song begins. The silence before the story remembers itself. Pause. Time in U has always been elastic, stretching, folding, rewriting itself around choices. Some say there are infinite worlds where each decision echoes differently. One where Finn never draws his sword. One where bubblegum never falls. One where Jake never laughs. And in this world, the stillness has its own kind of beauty. The Candy Kingdom becomes a garden of reflection. Without its ruler's firm hand, the citizens create gentle chaos. Not rebellion, but freedom in the absence of instruction. Peppermint Butler meditates beneath a caramel fountain, muttering about dark magics that now feel unnecessary. Lady Rainicorn glides through empty skies, her body weaving soft ribbons of color that no one sees. It is peaceful, almost too peaceful. Like a painting of joy left untouched for too long, its colors begin to fade. Finn dreams of something distant, a voice that calls him in his sleep. Sometimes it sounds like Princess Bubblegum. Sometimes like the wind. Sometimes like nothing at all. He wakes with his heart beating softly against his chest, as if remembering an echo from another life. He wonders what lies beyond the hills. He wonders who he would have been if he had gone, but he does not move. He waits because deep down he feels that if he were to rise and leave this quiet meadow, the stillness of the world would unravel, that the peace he knows, delicate and crystalline, might break beneath the weight of his footsteps. And so he stays. Pause. It is strange, isn't it? How peace can feel heavy when it lasts too long. How stillness, once soothing, can begin to whisper of what might have been. In the endless twilight of this timeline, the stars themselves seem to lean closer each night, burning with quiet curiosity. They have seen countless heroes across infinite skies, and yet they find themselves wondering, what becomes of courage when it has no cause? Perhaps even the cosmos mourns the stories untold, the moments that never rise from possibility into being. But there is grace in stillness too, a lesson woven into the soft folds of what never happened. The land of U, untouched by heroism, becomes a meditation on what is left when the noise of purpose falls away. The rivers still sparkle, the trees still dance. And somewhere, beneath the soft hum of the stars, the idea of a hero still sleeps. Not dead, only dreaming. As the night deepens, Jake snores beside the flickering fire. Finn gazes up at the constellations, tracing their invisible lines with his finger. He can almost imagine a story hidden among them, a hero, a princess, a sword raised high. But before the picture completes, the stars shift and the image dissolves. Maybe it's better this way, Finn whispers to no one in particular. Maybe stories don't always have to begin, the world sighs, relieved and uncertain. The river murmurs against the stones, and the scent of wild honey drifts through the air. Somewhere far away, in the still heart of the Candy Kingdom, Princess Bubblegum looks up at that same sky and feels a similar ache, a memory that never happened. Two souls bound by what never was, oars, and so the first night passes. No rescue, no tragedy, only the soft hum of existence, suspended like dust in a sunbeam. The land of U does not crumble without its hero. It simply learns to rest without expectation. But the stars keep their vigil, waiting for the day or dream when the boy in the hat will finally rise, drawn by a call too quiet to ignore, because even in the worlds where nothing happens, the possibility of awakening remains. And when it does, the whole sky will remember what it feels like to sing. For now, though, it is enough to lie beneath the stars and listen. The dawn rose quietly over the land of U, casting soft ribbons of pink and gold across the horizon. The light crept tenderly through the candy towers and glass spires of the once bustling Candy Kingdom, illuminating empty balconies where laughter used to echo. A slow, sugary mist drifted through the air, smelling faintly of caramel and nostalgia. There were no royal processions today, no peppermint guards standing proud by the gates. The flags that once danced proudly in the wind hung still, their colors muted by the sun's gentle touch. Inside the palace walls, dust motes floated lazily in shafts of light. The laboratory hummed faintly, an eternal machine without a master's hand. Beakers and vials still glowed with the ghost of creation, as if the room itself remembered what it was to be alive. But its mistress, Princess Bubblegum, was gone. She had not died. She had simply drifted. Pause. In this reality, where Finn never saved her, Bubblegum's story was never woven into heroism. She remained alone in her experiments, further and further withdrawn into the labyrinth of her own making. Her desire to understand the laws of existence grew until she herself became a quiet observer of time, detached, analytical, infinite, without Finn's interruption. Without his boundless warmth and chaos, she fell deeper into logic's embrace. Her heart, once a balance between love and intellect, became a crystal, clear, perfect, but cold. The Candy People continued their lives for a while. They tended gardens, sang songs, held festivals in her name, but with each passing season their memories of her faded like frost melting under sunlight. The mind of a kingdom can forget even its queen. Soon, they no longer remembered who had built their walls or who had given them life. They lived in patterns, sweet routines passed down by instinct rather than remembrance. They spoke her name as myth, then as rumor, then not at all, Oz. Have you ever wondered what happens to a world that forgets the one who dreamed it? The Candy Kingdom became a reflection of this forgetting, a soft paradise with no architect. Without purpose, their sweetness lost its meaning. The air was still sugary, but the laughter that filled it sounded hollow, drifting like echoes of a forgotten festival. Peppermint Butler, the ever-loyal servant of his vanished queen, felt the weight of centuries pressing upon his heart. His knowledge of dark arts and secret powers could not restore what had been lost. He would walk through the empty halls, dragging his peppermint cane, whispering to the shadows. She was here once, wasn't she? But the walls, lined with the remnants of Bubblegum's machines, answered only in gentle mechanical sighs. He began lighting candles each evening, one for every memory he could still summon. Her laughter, her stubbornness, her endless tinkering. But even those flickering flames grew dim over time. The mind resists holding on to what the world itself has chosen to release. Pause. Outside the kingdom walls, the land began to change. Without Bubblegum's guiding presence, nature returned to its quiet dominance. Candy vines grew wild, twisting around buildings, their blossoms glowing faintly at night. Gumdrop fields melted under the sun, forming rivers of syrup that sparkled under the moonlight. It was beautiful, achingly beautiful, but it was a beauty of endings, not beginnings. From afar, Finn sometimes watched the kingdom from the hills. He didn't know why he was drawn to it, only that something about its silence spoke to him. He could feel, faintly, the pulse of what might have been. Like a dream slipping through his fingers before he could name it. "Jake," he said one evening, his voice barely above a whisper. "Doesn't it feel like that place is waiting for something?" Jake yawned, eyes half closed, his body stretching lazily into the grass. "Everything's waiting for something, dude. Maybe it's waiting for someone to remember." Pause. The Candy people, though forgetful, still followed the patterns their queen had designed. They maintained gardens, mixed potions, repaired small machines, not out of obligation, but instinct. Creation itself remembered her touch, even if they did not. But slowly, the land began to dream without her. New stories bloomed in her absence. The Gumball Guardians, once statuesque protectors, began to wander. They spoke to one another in slow, echoing tones about the meaning of duty when the one they served was no longer known. "If the queen is forgotten," one murmured, "do we still guard her gate?" "Perhaps," answered the other. "We guard the idea of her." And so they stood eternal, guarding a memory rather than a monarch. There is something sacred in that, in remembering what cannot be seen. Pause. Sometimes, late at night, the moonlight touched the palace windows just right, and the laboratory came alive again. Machines stirred as if sighing from long sleep. Vials glowed, equations shimmered on the walls, and for a heartbeat it seemed as though she might walk through the door, her pink hair trailing light behind her. But she never did. Because far away, deep beneath the earth, Princess Bubblegum had become something else entirely. She wandered the sublayer of existence, tracing the roots of creation. She sought the heart of the material world, the pulse that kept the atoms singing. She was no longer a ruler, she was a philosopher of sugar, a scientist of silence. Down there she spoke not to people but to time itself. "If no one remembers me," she asked the void, "do I still exist?" The void answered with quiet sweetness, the sound of dripping syrup, the heartbeat of the universe. Pause. The Candy Kingdom above her continued to drift into legend. Adventurers passing through would hear of a strange city made of sweets, ruled by no one, and yet somehow alive. They would marvel at its peace, its eerie harmony, and leave before nightfall, unsure whether it was real or merely a mirage of hunger and dreams. It was said that those who stayed too long began to forget themselves, their names, their quests, even their desires. The kingdom's magic, untended yet eternal, wove forgetfulness as its new crown. To live there was to dissolve into gentleness. To remember was to feel pain. And so the world chose to forget. Pause. In a nearby meadow, Finn dreamed again. He saw flashes of pink light, heard echoes of laughter, felt the pull of something sacred and familiar. But when he woke, only the morning breeze remained. Jake, half asleep, murmured, "Another weird dream, bro?" Finn nodded slowly. "Yeah." It felt like someone was calling, but really far away. He didn't know it yet, but the echo of Princess Bubblegum's existence still pulsed faintly in his soul, a thread of memory that had refused to fade, no matter how softly the world tried to erase it. Perhaps love, even unspoken, is the one thing that survives all forgetting. Pause. As days passed, the kingdom's colors began to pale. The candy that made up its walls grew translucent. The sky above it softened to a perpetual twilight, as if mourning the loss of its maker. And then, one evening, as Finn watched from afar, a single light flickered within the palace. Faint, trembling, like a heartbeat. It glowed for a moment, casting a rosy hue across the towers, then faded once more into silence. Finn stood there, unable to move. He didn't know why he felt tears welling in his eyes, only that something inside him ached. The ache of a story that never began. "Someone's in there," he whispered. "Someone's waiting." Jake tilted his head. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just the kingdom dreaming of her." Finn looked up at the stars. They blinked down like patient witnesses, knowing what he did not. That sometimes dreams are more real than memory. What is a queen without her people? What is a world without its dreamer? And what is a hero when there is no one left to save? These questions lingered in the wind that night, brushing against the candy towers, the empty streets, and the boy who watched from afar. The kingdom had forgotten its queen, but the universe had not, for even forgotten things leave echoes, faint songs carried through the stars, waiting for a listener to remember the melody. The moon rose higher, pouring light across the sleeping city. In its glow, the Candy Kingdom shimmered faintly, not as it was, but as it remembered itself to be. For a brief moment, Finn thought he saw her standing on a balcony, watching the same sky, her eyes full of infinite thought. And then she was gone. But something within him stirred. The first heartbeat of destiny, fragile and trembling. The stars leaned closer, their whispers growing louder. Perhaps, they said, the hero's heart was finally beginning to remember what it had once been meant to do. And in that soft, eternal night, a single phrase drifted through the wind, carried from no mouth, but heard by every dreaming soul in she waits. The morning light drifted softly across the meadows outside the Candy Kingdom. The dew shimmered like scattered gems, and the air carried the scent of honey and sunlight. The world was beautiful in its stillness, an untouched canvas brushed with slow-moving clouds and patient trees. Finn awoke beneath a great sugar maple, the sound of leaves whispering overhead. His sword lay beside him, glinting faintly in the soft light, though he could no longer remember when or why he'd made it. The name Finn echoed somewhere far away in his mind, not gone, but fading, as though the wind itself was carrying it off one syllable at a time. He sat up slowly, brushing the grass from his tunic, and gazed toward the distant pink spires of the Candy Kingdom. He did not know their story, nor why his heart ached when he looked upon them. All he knew was that something inside him longed for that place, as though a part of him had been left there long ago. Pause. Jake was still asleep, his chest rising and falling in slow rhythm. His snores blended with the hum of bees nearby, weaving a lazy song that belonged to creatures who had never known urgency. Finn smiled faintly. The world felt gentle, timeless, and yet, beneath its calm surface, there was a strange emptiness, like a story that had forgotten its middle. He wandered toward the river that wound its way through the meadow. Its waters reflected the pale sky, clear and unbroken. As he knelt to drink, he caught sight of his reflection. A boy's face, kind and curious, framed by a hat whose meaning he no longer remembered. "Who are you?" he whispered to the water. The reflection stared back, uncertain. The wind rustled through the reeds, answering only with silence. Of course, memory, when left alone, becomes like mist, rising, shimmering, and then disappearing into the sky. Finn's mind was full of small fragments. A girl laughing under starlight, a kingdom made of sugar, a battle cry that shook the air. But none of it fit together. The shapes of his memories had become outlines with no color, music without melody. He began to wander, following paths without knowing why. Every flower, every hill seemed to hold the ghost of something familiar. In one glade, he saw the remains of an old campsite, burnt wood, a broken kettle, a faded blanket embroidered with the image of a candy crown. He touched it gently, and for a brief heartbeat, something deep inside him stirred. A voice, soft and far away, whispered his name. Finn, the sound made his heart flutter like a string pulled gently by fate. But before he could answer, it was gone, leaving only the sighing wind and the slow rhythm of the world breathing. Pause. He continued walking until the land began to change. The green meadows gave way to soft, rolling hills, and beyond them rose the ruins of something vast and ancient, a kingdom of caramel stone and melted glass. It was beautiful in its decay, a monument to what once was and no longer remembered itself. Finn wandered through its empty streets, his footsteps echoing softly. Statues stood at every corner, their faces worn smooth by time. He stopped before one, a tall, regal figure whose crown was carved from crystal candy. Her face was almost gone, but something in her posture, her gaze, stirred recognition. "Do I know you?" he murmured. The statue did not answer, but in the silence he felt the faint hum of familiarity. It was like standing in a dream you've had before, one that feels older than your life. Pause. As he explored further, he found words carved into the palace walls, their letters half melted by age, remember, sweetness, for it was also strength. He traced the words with his fingers, the sugar stone cool beneath his touch. Somewhere, deep within, a warmth spread, the feeling of connection to something vast and tender. And then, faintly, he heard it again. That voice, gentle and patient, whispering through the air. Finn, he turned, heart racing softly, but no one was there. Only the empty corridors, shimmering with faint pink light, and the quiet hum of forgotten machines. "Who's there?" he called, but his voice came out softer than he meant it to, a whisper rather than a question. No answer came, only the faint scent of bubblegum carried on the wind. Pause. Far away, beneath the earth, Princess Bubblegum stirred. She felt it, the ripple in the weave of time, the soft awakening of something that had once been hers to guide. Her experiments had long transcended the material. She no longer lived as flesh and candy, but as thought and energy, a consciousness suspended within the lattice of creation itself. Through that web, she sensed the faint heartbeat of the boy she once knew. "Finn," she whispered into the void. "You were not meant to forget." Her voice, though faint, drifted upward through layers of earth and stone, carried by memory itself, an echo seeking a soul. And in the ruins above, Finn paused mid-step, his breath catching. He didn't hear words, not truly, but something deep within him recognized them. His heart beat faster. His fingers trembled. "Someone's calling me," he whispered. "Someone who knows me." 'Cause Jake found him hours later, standing beneath the statue of the forgotten queen. "Dude, what are you doing all the way out here?" Jake asked, stretching his arms like ribbons. "You've been gone all day." Finn didn't turn. His eyes were fixed on the carved crown. "Jake, do you ever feel like we're part of something bigger? Like maybe we forgot who we were supposed to be?" Jake frowned, rubbing the back of his head. "You're thinking too hard again, bro. We got good food, sunshine and naps. What else could anyone need?" Finn smiled softly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I think I used to need more. I think there was something important." Someone important, the wind picked up, carrying the faintest trace of that voice again, a whisper of pink and starlight. "Remember." Jake blinked. "You hear that?" Finn nodded slowly. Yeah, I think the world's trying to tell us a story. Pause. That night they made camp beside the ruins. The stars above were quiet, shimmering like waiting eyes. Finn stared into the fire, his thoughts turning in slow, gentle circles. He tried to remember his adventures, the songs, the battles, the laughter. But all he could find were empty shapes in the dark. Yet one image would not leave him, a girl's smile, bright as morning, kind and fierce at once. Who was she? Why did his heart ache when he tried to remember her name? He reached for his sword, running his fingers along its edge. The metal felt alive, humming faintly beneath his touch. Etched into its hilt were symbols he'd never noticed before. Circles, stars, and a small heart drawn in sugar lines. He smiled faintly. You remember, don't you? He whispered to the sword. The blade gleamed in response. That night, Finn dreamed of the Candy Kingdom as it once was, full of light and laughter, music spilling from every tower. He saw himself running through its halls, his hand clasped around another's, both of them laughing, breathless, alive. Then the dream shifted. The light dimmed, and the halls began to dissolve into mist. The figure beside him faded, leaving behind only her voice. You saved me once. Now you must remember me. He reached out, calling her name, but no sound came. The mist swallowed everything. When he awoke, the dawn was breaking again, painting the sky with colors of strawberry and cream. Jake was still asleep beside the fire. Finn sat up slowly, the dream heavy in his chest. He didn't know who she was, but he knew she was real, and in that moment, beneath the quiet hum of morning, the boy who had forgotten his name began to remember. Not just his name, but the feeling of being a hero. Pause. He rose, lifting his sword. The world seemed to awaken with him. The wind quickened, the grass whispered, the sky brightened just a little. Something ancient stirred across the land, a story long dormant beginning to turn its pages once again. Jake blinked awake, yawning. Where are we going now? Finn smiled faintly. I don't know. But I think I have to find her. Jake stretched, grinning. Well, adventure time again, huh? Finn laughed softly. The sound felt right, like remembering a song after years of silence. Yeah, he said quietly. Adventure time. And as they walked toward the horizon, the stars above shimmered brighter, as though whispering to each other. He remembers. Beneath the lilac glow of a tired dawn, the Candy Kingdom no longer shimmered with laughter. The air, once sweet with sugar and joy, had settled into a stillness that felt heavy, as if the candy itself had forgotten it was meant to bring delight. Pause. In this soft, strange version of ooh, there stood walls of peppermint stone cracked with age. The rivers of syrup moved sluggishly through forgotten streets, reflecting the faded pinks and blues of a sky that no longer sang. Lollipops wilted in the soil like dying flowers. The great castle, where once Princess Bubblegum's laughter echoed through the halls of invention, had grown cold. Empty laboratories hummed faintly, haunted by the memory of creation. And in the center of it all stood a monument, a statue of a boy with a sword. His face, carved with such hope, looked toward horizons that never came. Beneath his stone feet, moss crept like the quiet passing of time, and an inscription read only, "For the one who never returned." In this world, Finn never saved her. He never came when the gum walls were cracked and the peppermint guard faltered. He never faced the terror that rose from the blackened corners of the Candy Kingdom. And without him, the story grew roots in darker soil. But even in this kingdom of what-ifs, memory has a strange way of lingering. Some nights, when the wind passes through the sugar glass towers, it almost sounds like his laughter. Some mornings, the sunlight bends just right through the melted windows, and the shadows stretch like a boy running to save his friend. The kingdom remembers, even when no one else does. Bubblegum, in this forgotten timeline, became something different. Without Finn's hope to pull her back from the brink, her logic deepened into obsession. She built walls higher, machines stronger, laws tighter. Every failure, every betrayal, every moment of softness was erased in the name of preservation. She told herself that emotion was a liability, that friendship was a design flaw. And yet, beneath the circuits and formulas, she still felt the echo of his absence. What happens when a scientist loses the one person who reminded her she was human? What happens when the dreamer never comes to wake her from her logic? There were whispers among the few Candy citizens who remained. They said she had once built a heart, a mechanical one, to replace the broken one she had lost. They said it beat in the center of the castle, powered by her sorrow. Some nights you could hear it echoing through the halls like a slow, steady drum, keeping time with the heartbeat of a kingdom that had forgotten how to live. And far away, beyond the woods and the ruins, the grassland still remembered him too. The trees leaned toward each other, whispering stories of a boy with golden hair who used to sing to them. The clouds still drifted in shapes of adventure, castles, dragons, dreams, as if trying to summon him back through memory alone. Because even when someone is gone, the world does not easily let go. It bends around their absence, reshaping itself into longing. In another part of this imagined Jake wandered, not as a dog of laughter and song, but as a shadow stretched across the endless plains. Without Finn, his joy had dissolved into restlessness. He stretched himself thinner and thinner, as if trying to reach the edges of the world where the boy might still exist. But the world had grown strange. The stars whispered differently now, and time itself seemed tired. He spoke sometimes to the wind or to the reflections in puddles. "Hey, buddy," he'd say, "you still out there?" The puddles never answered. The wind never replied. But sometimes, just before sleep, he swore he heard that familiar voice. "Always, Jake." And so he wandered on. The kingdom of what-ifs is not a place of sorrow alone. It is also a garden of questions, blooming endlessly like flowers that never die. What if kindness had failed? What if logic had ruled? What if love, in its quiet imperfection, had been the only thing that could save them all? In this realm, each possibility is a ghost. Each missed moment becomes a doorway. And through those doorways, the mind drifts into the shimmering in-between, where dreams and regrets share the same breath. Princess Bubblegum sometimes walked the silent corridors of her castle and spoke aloud to the boy who wasn't there. She would explain her new formulas, her experiments, her hopes of perfect order, and when the silence stretched too long, she'd add softly, almost shyly, "You would have liked this one, Finn." The air would hum faintly, like a sigh of approval. But it was only the wind moving through the wires, yet even here, even in this candy-coated twilight, there remained a quiet truth. Every what-if contains a seed of redemption, because to imagine the wrong turn is also to imagine the way back. To dream of a world where he never came is to remember the sacredness of the world where he did. And perhaps that is the real heart of the kingdom of what-ifs. It does not exist to punish us with regret. It exists to remind us of how precious the right path truly was. Maybe that's why the candy trees still bloom every spring. Maybe that's why the rivers, though slow, still flow. Maybe that's why, in some hidden chamber of her heart, Bubblegum still looks out the window and whispers his name. For in the story of what never was lies the tenderness of what still might be. And as the pink sun sets once more over the cracked candy towers, The statue of the boy seems to smile just slightly, a faint glimmer of hope caught in the sugar light. The world exhales, and the kingdom dreams again. The night spread across like a blanket woven from memory. Every thread shimmered faintly with the glow of 1,000 forgotten adventures, and beneath that endless fabric, the land dreamed softly of the boy who once carried its heartbeat. Pause. The stars above the Candy Kingdom had grown dim in the years since Finn vanished, as if mourning his absence. But on this particular night, a strange light flickered through the heavens. Not a star, but a slow-moving ember, drifting like a note from a song half remembered. It crossed the sky and fell somewhere beyond the grasslands, leaving behind a quiet trail of silver dust. In the distance, Jake lifted his head. His fur had grayed, his eyes weary, yet his heart still pulsed with the same love that had once bound two souls in laughter and courage. The falling star hummed faintly in his ears, a melody, distant but familiar. It was a sound he hadn't heard since the old days, since before everything had gone quiet. He stood slowly, stretching his tired limbs. "Finn," he whispered, almost afraid to hope. Pause. The grass brushed his legs as he walked through the meadow, each step stirring tiny motes of light that hovered in the cool air. The moon hung low, vast and pale, painting the world in shades of blue and silver. Crickets sang softly, their rhythm echoing the song the star had left behind, a lullaby from the past. As Jake followed the melody, he began to remember things he thought he'd lost. The way Finn used to hum on long walks. The way his voice would crack with excitement when they found something strange in the woods. The way they both used to stop, look at the stars, and just breathe. Finn had always believed the stars were alive. Tiny eyes watching over each one a story waiting to be heard. He used to say that if you listened carefully enough, you could hear them whispering songs to one another. Songs about love and endings and beginnings that never quite began. And now, as Jake listened, he heard it too. The song beneath the stars. Pause. It wasn't a song in words. It was feeling, memory, rhythm. It was the laughter of old friends echoing across time, the sigh of the wind through candy trees, the heartbeat of a world that refused to forget. It was sorrow and hope intertwined, like two notes in a single melody. Jake sat on a small hill, his gaze lifted to the heavens. The stars seemed to dance, each flicker pulsing in time with his breath. For a moment, the boundaries between dream and memory blurred, and he saw it. Not with his eyes, but with that secret sense of the heart. A vision of the boy, Finn, standing on a distant cliff, the wind in his hair, his sword resting lightly in his hand. He looked older, wiser perhaps, but still radiant with that same fearless kindness. And in that vision, he turned, as though he could see Jake watching, and smiled. The melody swelled. It filled the sky, the soil, the quiet rivers. Even the ruins of the Candy Kingdom seemed to hum along, the candy towers vibrating softly like instruments awakening from sleep. Somewhere deep within her lab, Bubblegum lifted her head. For the first time in what felt like centuries, she stopped working. Her instruments flickered, her glass beakers trembled, and through the still air came a sound that tugged at her soul, a sound she thought she'd silenced long ago. A song, his song. She stepped outside, her white coat fluttering against the wind. The night was luminous, every surface catching the faint echo of that melody. She looked up and whispered, "Finn?" No one answered, but the air shimmered gently in response. The stars pulsed brighter, as though offering comfort. And for a heartbeat, just one, she let herself remember. the laughter in the forest, the mistakes forgiven, the small moments that made her believe in things logic couldn't explain. Perhaps that's what this world had forgotten, that the truest science is love, that every formula begins as a hope and every equation ends in wonder. Bubblegum sank to her knees on the castle steps, her reflection trembling in a pool of starlight. "What if I was wrong?" she murmured. "What if he was never meant to save me, but to remind me how to be alive?" The wind answered by carrying the song closer, wrapping around her like an embrace. In the forest, Jake was still listening. He could feel the melody weaving through the world, connecting everything it touched, from the Candy Kingdom to the icy wastes of the north, from Marceline's lonely tower to the Fire Kingdom's sleeping heart. The song reached them all, awakening memories of the boy who never saved anyone in this timeline, but whose spirit somehow still did. Because saving isn't always about action. Sometimes it's about the echo left behind. Sometimes it's the way a name lingers in the wind, or the way a story refuses to end. The night deepened, and the melody began to change. It grew softer, slower, becoming a lullaby. Jake lay down in the grass, watching the stars blink above him like old friends. He thought of Finn's smile, of their adventures, of every impossible dream they had chased together. And as his eyes grew heavy, he whispered, "If you're out there, buddy, sing a little louder." The stars seemed to shimmer brighter for a moment. Then the world fell quiet again, wrapped in that sacred stillness that exists just before sleep. Bubblegum stayed outside until dawn. When the first rays of light touched her face, she smiled, small, tentative, but real. She rose and turned back toward her castle, but her steps were lighter now, her mind gentler. The melody had reminded her that even lost timelines can still dream of healing. The song had not brought Finn back, but it had brought back something else. Hope. And in O, that is often enough. As the first bird sang from a tree of caramel branches, the world seemed to sigh with relief. The night had spoken its truth. The stars had sung their song, and somewhere, far away, in a place between dream and memory, the boy who never saved her smiled beneath the endless sky, listening to the world remember him. The forest grew denser as Finn and Jake walked, the trees arching overhead like cathedral pillars woven from bark and leaves. The twilight filtered through the branches, casting long, slow shadows that moved like whispers across the forest floor. Somewhere deep within, a faint hum vibrated through the air, almost imperceptible. A heartbeat older than memory itself. Pause. The path beneath them wound downward, twisting between roots and moss-covered stones, leading toward a place the sunlight never fully reached. It was a hollow, carved from the earth long before the kingdom had ever known its sweetness. The entrance loomed like a dark mouth, quiet and patient, as if it had been waiting for them to arrive. Finn hesitated, his hand brushing the hilt of his sword. Not out of fear, there was none in him, but because he could feel that this place held a different kind of story, one that wasn't about battles or laughter or even friendship. It was a story of time itself, bending, sleeping, and sometimes forgetting entirely. Jake padded forward, his eyes reflecting the dim light like lanterns in the dark. "Dude, this place feels weird," he said softly. "Like, not scary weird, more sad weird." Finn nodded, listening to the echoing hum that came from deep within the cave. The sound wasn't mechanical, nor was it natural. It was a rhythm older than any forest, older than the kingdom, older than even the stars above. It called to something in him he couldn't yet name. They stepped inside, the world around them changing. The air was cooler, scented faintly of wet stone and time-stale wind. Crystals jutted from the walls, glowing softly in shades of violet and silver, pulsing with a slow, rhythmic light. The floor beneath their feet was smooth, polished, as if the cave itself had been walked upon by infinite generations. And the deeper they went, the slower the world seemed to move. Time in this place had forgotten its own rules. Minutes stretched and contracted like breath, and memories began to seep from the walls themselves. Finn felt moments from other lives brushing against him, glimpses of laughter he hadn't yet shared, victories he hadn't yet won, tears he had never cried. It was dizzying, and yet profoundly calm. He knelt beside a pool of dark, reflective water, watching as the light from the crystals shimmered across its surface. He saw faces in the reflections, familiar and strange all at once. Princess Bubblegum's face flickered there, her eyes patient, sad, filled with unspoken questions. Finn reached out, and the water rippled as though the girl had been waiting for his touch all along. I don't know where to start," he whispered. The cave itself seemed to answer, though no words were spoken. The crystals pulsed in time with the rhythm of his heart. The water mirrored his breath, and somewhere far above, a faint echo of a melody reached him, the same song beneath the stars, carried down from memory. Jake crouched beside him, listening. "It's like this place remembers everything we forgot. Every choice, every mistake, every what if." Finn nodded slowly, feeling the weight of all those unchosen paths pressing gently on his shoulders. Maybe that's why we're here. To see the pieces of time we never got to touch. The deeper they ventured, the more vivid the memories became. A wall of crystals pulsed faster as Finn approached, and within its glow he could see entire stories playing out. A candy kingdom without him, Bubblegum walking alone through endless halls, adventures that never happened, friendships that had frayed before they could fully bloom. It was beautiful and terrible at once, the infinite tapestry of possibility. He realized that his absence had left spaces in the world, spaces that waited to be filled, even if he didn't yet know how. "We can't fix all of it," Jake murmured. "But maybe we can remember it." The idea settled over Finn like a soft blanket. To remember, to honor the echoes, to let them guide the present. Perhaps that was as powerful as any sword, as any heroic act. At the heart of the cave, they found a chamber where the crystals were larger, the light brighter and warmer. A pool lay in its center, perfectly still. Finn knelt beside it again, and this time the water spoke in shapes and colors, showing him what he had missed, the small kindnesses, the laughter he hadn't shared, the courage he had yet to summon. He realized then that time was not lost, only sleeping, waiting for someone to awaken it. He thought of Bubblegum, of her solitude, of the choices she had made in his absence. He saw her not as a victim of what-ifs, but as a brilliant mind navigating the tides of possibility. And in that moment, he understood that their story wasn't over. It had simply been paused, waiting for him to step back into its rhythm. Jake leaned on a crystal, eyes half closed. "This place, it feels like the world is breathing slowly," he said. "Like it's tired but patient, like it knows we're coming." Finn smiled faintly. "Maybe time isn't something we chase. Maybe it's something that waits for us to remember it." And then, as if to affirm his thought, the water shimmered one last time. A soft ripple moved across its surface, and in it, Finn saw not just the past, but a path forward, glowing faintly like a thread of moonlight. "We have to follow it," he said softly. Jake grinned. "Adventure time, dude." The cave held its breath as they stood and turned toward the glowing path. The hum of ancient memory followed them, quiet now but persistent. like a lullaby that would carry through every shadowed corner of the world. Outside, the stars blinked knowingly, their light filtering into the entrance, painting the forest with silver hope. The song beneath the stars, faint but unwavering, found them again, a melody that stretched across time, whispering, "Remember, follow, return." And so Finn and Jake stepped forward, leaving the chamber where time slept behind them. The cave was no longer a place of loss, but of awakening, a reminder that even in worlds where heroes had forgotten their names, or kingdoms had lost their queens, the heartbeat of possibility always endured. Every echo mattered, every song counted, every choice, whether made or missed, was a note in the endless symphony of life. And with the first cautious steps onto the glowing path, the boy who had forgotten his name began to remember not just who he was, but who he was meant to be. The morning was soft, almost hesitant, as if the sun itself had paused to catch its own reflection in the rivers that ran through Oo. Mist clung to the meadows like a delicate veil, shimmering faintly with the scent of honeydew and early dew. The world seemed quieter than usual, listening for something that had long been absent. A light, not of fire or magic, but of presence. Pause. Finn and Jake emerged from the cave where time had slept, the glowing path still faintly visible beneath their feet. The air felt alive with possibility, though it carried the weight of many unspoken stories. Finn ran his fingers along the edge of his sword, feeling its familiar hum, a vibration that seemed to resonate with the rhythm of the waking day. The sword had always been more than metal. It was a guide, a pulse, a promise that even in the darkest places light waits. "Do you feel it, Jake?" Finn asked softly. His voice barely rose above the whisper of the wind through the grass. "Like, the world is holding its breath," Jake stretched and yawned, but even in his sleepy grin there was a quiet awe. "Yeah, man. It's like everything's waiting for something to happen. Like the universe is in slow motion, just for us." Pause. The light that led them forward wasn't just the sun, and it wasn't just the reflection of the crystals from the cave. It was something more subtle, a glow that seemed to emerge from the very earth, from the hearts of rivers and trees and stones. The path pulsed gently, as though the world itself had learned patience, waiting for Finn to step fully into his place in its story, and perhaps, in truth, the world had been waiting all along, waiting for the boy who could remember to meet the girl who had never forgotten. As they walked, the forest around them shifted subtly. The trees leaned toward the light, their leaves brushing each other in soft applause. Birds perched high in the branches, watching silently, their songs paused as if in reverence. Even the grass seemed to stretch a little taller, swaying as though acknowledging the steps of someone who mattered. Pause. Finn thought about all the times he had rushed headlong into adventure, guided by instinct and courage. He remembered the battles, the laughter, the moments of quiet that had felt fleeting at the time. And yet, in this pause, in this light that had learned to wait, he realized that some things could not be rushed. Some truths, some connections required stillness, patience, and the soft unfolding of time. Jake noticed Finn slowing, eyes tracing the shimmer along the path.
"Hey dude, you okay?"
Finn nodded slowly.
"Yeah, it's just this light. It feels like it's waiting for me to understand something."
"Something I missed before." Jake tilted his head, ears twitching. "Maybe it's like that time you left your favorite sword in the attic, and it waited for you to come back for it."
"Only way bigger," Finn smiled faintly.
"Yeah, maybe that's it." Pause. The light led them through valleys where shadows and sunbeams danced together, painting the hills in muted gold and deep violet. Each step felt deliberate, as though the ground itself remembered the boy's presence, and responded in kind. Finn realized that light, like time, was not just illumination. It was memory, intention, and love woven together. Patient, persistent, never rushing, but always guiding. And as they reached a small hilltop, the horizon opened before them. The sky was painted with the gentle colors of dawn, soft pink, blending into pale lavender, touched with silver streaks. Below, the Candy Kingdom glimmered faintly in the morning haze. Not perfect, not unchanged, but alive. It breathed again, slowly and deliberately, as if waking from a long, quiet dream. A pause. Finn knelt on the hilltop, gazing at the kingdom. In that moment, he felt the presence of Princess Bubblegum, not as a person, but as the essence of her being, brilliant, patient, and unwavering. She had never truly been gone. She existed in the pulse of the rivers, the rhythm of the leaves, the soft shimmer of sugar in the sunlight. And now the light that had learned to wait was guiding him back to her. Not because he needed to save her, but because some bonds transcend action. They are remembered in the very fabric of the world. Jake settled beside him, tail curling around his feet.
So this is it, huh?
The light thingy we've been following? Finn nodded, letting the warmth of the rising sun touch his face.
It's more than that, Jake. It's a reminder.
That waiting sometimes is part of the journey. That patience can be a kind of courage. That light will always be there, even when we think it's gone. Pause. The wind carried faint scents of candy and pine, and Finn closed his eyes, listening. Somewhere, far below, the soft hum of Bubblegum's heartbeat, mechanical and human, intertwined, echoed through the morning. It was a sound he had almost forgotten, yet it stirred a deep recognition in him.
Not a memory of events, but of connection. I think I understand now, Finn whispered. The world doesn't need me to rush. It just needs me to remember. Jake tilted his head toward him.
Remember what exactly? Finn smiled softly, looking at the shimmering kingdom below.
Everything that matters.
That even if I had never saved anyone,
I'm still part of this story. And she's still part of it too, waiting, listening, hoping.
The path of light pulsed faintly at their feet, as though acknowledging the truth Finn had spoken. Time itself seemed to bend slightly, stretching in harmony with their understanding. The world exhaled quietly, like the soft sigh of a being long accustomed to patience. For in the waiting, the light had learned its own lesson, that the truest illumination comes not from force, but from persistence, from quiet endurance, from the gentle guidance of hearts that refuse to forget. They began to descend toward the kingdom, the glow beneath their feet fading into the rising sun. The streets were quiet, the candy towers sparkling faintly with dew, and somewhere far above a song played, soft, intricate, a melody woven from memory, hope, and the inevitability of reunion. Finn felt the weight of every what-if lifting gently from his shoulders. The light had waited, and now it would lead them onward, not to battles, nor to rescue, but to understanding, to presence, to the quiet recognition of what truly mattered. Jake yawned, stretching as they moved.
Adventure time, huh?
Finn laughed softly. Yeah, but not the kind we were expecting, the kind we needed, and as they walked, the light continued to pulse, patient and unwavering, guiding them toward the heart of the Candy Kingdom, toward Chapter 8. The Garden of Echoed Smiles. The air was warm and fragrant, touched with the sweetness of candy flowers that had survived the long quiet of absence. The sun leaned low, brushing the horizon with gentle strokes of peach and rose, as if painting the world in forgiveness. The garden lay before Finn and Jake like a secret remembered, a place where the laughter of the past lingered softly among the blooms. Pause. This was not a garden of ordinary plants. Candy canes twisted upward like living towers, their stripes glowing faintly in the late light. Gumdrop bushes quivered with hidden life, their colors shifting as though responding to unspoken emotions. Rivers of syrup wound through the flower beds, reflecting the sky above, carrying tiny motes of golden light that danced with the rhythm of the wind. Here, time itself felt gentle, slowing to match the pulse of every living thing. Finn stepped forward, his bare hands brushing along the petals of a crystallized candy flower. Each touch sent a ripple of memory through him, fragments of smiles, laughter, and soft voices that he had nearly forgotten. Somewhere, in the distant folds of his mind, he felt the echo of Bubblegum's presence. Not as a girl to be saved, but as a friend, a mind, a force of quiet patience that had shaped worlds even in his absence. Jake wandered beside him,
stretching his long limbs and sniffing the air.
"Dude, this place,
It's like...
everything happy we ever had, condensed into one spot," he said, eyes wide. It's
magical, man." Finn smiled, though his gaze remained distant.
It's more than magic, Jake. It's memory made real.
Every joy, every kindness, every quiet moment we almost forgot.
It lives here. They moved slowly, letting the garden guide them. The farther they walked, the more it seemed to respond. Leaves trembling softly under unseen hands, syrup rivers shimmering brighter, petals opening to greet them. And everywhere, faintly, there were echoes of smiles, not visible faces, but feelings that lingered in the air, warm and tender, as if the world itself had learned to keep joy alive, even when heroes wander far from their place, Oars. Finn paused beside a small pond, where crystal lilies floated like mirrors. The water reflected the fading sky, the candy towers, and the faintest shimmer of something he could not name. Leaning closer, he saw the reflection of someone standing beside him. Not Jake, not a figure he recognized, but a soft presence that filled the space with calm. He knelt, fingertips tracing the water's surface.
"You're here," he whispered.
"Even if I never knew." Pause. The garden was full of whispers, though they were not voices. They were the murmur of wind through sugar leaves, the soft bubbling of syrup streams, the gentle hum of blossoms unfurling in slow anticipation. Each sound carried fragments of the past, adventures shared, mistakes forgiven, moments of laughter, the quiet courage of small kindnesses. It was here that Finn understood. To save someone is not always to fight or to conquer. Sometimes it is to remember, to carry the essence of them through the world, allowing the small ripples of their presence to guide others, even when they are not physically near. Jake leaned against a gumdrop bush, eyes half closed. "So, the garden's basically..."
"Hope?" Finn nodded softly, his fingers brushing a vine that pulsed with faint golden light.
"Not just hope, Jake. Continuity, connection. The idea that nothing we do, no laughter, no kindness, is ever truly lost. Even in timelines where we fail, even in worlds where we forget.
It still echoes.
It still matters." Oars. The sky above deepened into twilight, painting the candy petals in hues of lavender and amber. Stars began to blink into existence, delicate points of light that mirrored the tiny glimmers within the pond. Finn noticed that some of the reflections in the water were not his own. They were shapes he had seen in dreams, figures who had guided him without knowledge. One particularly caught his eye, a girl with hair like spun sugar and eyes bright with curiosity and intelligence. Princess Bubblegum. He felt a warmth in his chest, a soft tug of familiarity. Not a memory of past events, but a recognition of essence. She was here, in the echoes, in the melodies of the garden, in the very air that had learned to hold joy and patience alike. Pause. He whispered her name softly, almost afraid to break the spell. Bubblegum. The garden seemed to respond. The syrup rivers shimmered in soft waves, petals tilted toward him, and somewhere in the distance, a faint chime of crystalline laughter echoed, a sound that had long been dormant in his heart. Jake's ears twitched.
I think,
"She's happy," he said.
even if she's not.
"Right here," Finn nodded, understanding without words. Happiness in this garden did not need a physical form. It existed in the resonance of being, in the persistence of joy across moments, across time, across worlds. Pause, they wandered further, discovering hidden alcoves where flowers glowed with memories of adventure. A small bench carved from peppermint sat under a candy tree, inviting them to rest. Finn and Jake sat quietly, letting the soft hum of the garden wash over them. The world felt alive, breathing with a slow, deliberate patience. And for the first time in what felt like ages, Finn allowed himself to simply be. Without purpose, without urgency, without expectation. The garden whispered to him, "You are part of everything. You are remembered.
You are here." He thought of all the times he had rushed forward, all the battles, all the rescues, all the moments when courage demanded action.
And now, in this quiet, he realized that the greatest courage could also be patience. To witness, to remember, to exist fully in the present. This was a kind of heroism too, Shaw's. As night deepened, the garden glimmered faintly under starlight, petals reflecting the heavens above. Finn felt a gentle pull in his heart, a soft invitation to continue walking, to follow the echoes of joy beyond the garden walls. Every step forward was quiet, deliberate, reverent. Jake stretched lazily. "So, where to now, bro?" Finn smiled softly, rising to his feet. "We follow the echoes.
There's more to see.
More to remember. The world isn't done speaking to us yet." The wind carried a faint, sweet scent of sugar and starlight, guiding them toward distant horizons. And in that quiet promise, Finn understood every smile, every memory, every gentle echo. They were all part of the story waiting to unfold. The river lay ahead like a silver ribbon unfurling through the valleys of Ooh, its surface reflecting the soft glow of the moon and the scattered stars above. The air was cool and still, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers and the earthy tang of stone. Every ripple whispered secrets of time, as though the river itself had witnessed every choice, every laughter, every tear that had ever graced the land. Finn and Jake approached its banks carefully. The water glimmered like liquid memory, flowing with an elegance that seemed to defy the rush of ordinary time. Each ripple was a story, each current a passage through moments both remembered and forgotten. Even the reeds that leaned toward the water seemed to bow in respect, as though acknowledging the sacredness of the river's memory. "Wow," Jake whispered, tail twitching with wonder. "It's
alive, dude, like..."
"It knows stuff." Finn knelt beside the water, fingertips brushing the cool surface. The moment his skin met the river, the reflections shifted, not just of the moon or stars, but of times past, choices unmade, adventures untaken. He saw fleeting glimpses of Princess Bubblegum wandering through her laboratory alone, absorbed in her inventions, her eyes searching for solutions that could not be rushed. He saw himself in shadowed corners, hesitating, wondering what might have been. The river had a way of remembering that transcended language. It did not judge, nor did it mourn. It simply held. Every smile, every regret, every act of courage or folly existed here in delicate balance. Finn realized that to touch the water was not merely to see the past. It was to understand it, to witness it, to honor it. Jake leaned over beside him, peering into the depths.
"So, everything that happened, even the stuff we messed up..."
"It's still here?" Finn nodded slowly, watching a swirl of light ripple through the currents.
Yeah, it's all here. Even the stuff we didn't see, didn't do, or almost forgot.
The river keeps it,
Maybe it's trying to remind us.
that nothing is ever truly lost. The sound of the river was hypnotic. Each wave that lapped the shore was like a heartbeat, steady and eternal. Finn listened to it and felt a rhythm beneath his own pulse, a soft, insistent echo of the interconnectedness of all things. Time, he realized, is not linear. It is a weave of memories, choices, and possibilities flowing endlessly like this river. And in its currents, even absence has meaning. He watched as the reflection shifted, forming images of moments that might have been: bubblegum smiling faintly at a project completed without him, Jake stretching beside him in laughter, adventures begun in quiet corners of the world. Each vision was fleeting, yet powerful, reminding him that connection transcends circumstance. Finn dipped his hand deeper into the water, sending gentle ripples across the mirrored surface. With every wave, the river seemed to respond, memories adjusting, shapes rearranging, light bending in delicate patterns. It was as though the river itself breathed with the life of the world, holding the past in gentle suspension while welcoming the present. "Do you think it remembers us?" Jake asked softly, voice barely above the whisper of flowing water. Finn smiled faintly, eyes reflecting the rippling currents.
I think
"It remembers everything. Not just us, but everyone."
every choice, every friendship, every moment we thought was lost. And maybe
Maybe it waits for us to notice, to learn from it, to carry it forward. The river's memory was not just in what had happened, it was in what could happen. Finn realized that for every reflection of the past, there was a faint shimmer of possibility, a hint of paths not yet taken. And even in timelines where he had not saved Princess Bubblegum, where decisions had gone differently, the river remembered her essence, her brilliance, her patience, her courage. She existed in the world not only through action, but through the currents of memory that connected all living things. He whispered her name softly, letting it mingle with the river's hum. "Bubblegum."
I see you here. Even if I never could save you. The river rippled in response, faint sparkles of silver light dancing across its surface.
For a moment, Finn felt a presence, a warmth that did not belong to the water alone, but to the essence of her being, woven into the very fabric of the world. Jake sat beside him, legs dangling over the bank.
It's like,
"She's part of everything now, dude."
even when we weren't around,
She mattered. "She's still here," Finn nodded, feeling a quiet understanding settle over him. "Yeah, even in timelines where nothing happened the way we wanted, she exists."
and that's enough.
Sometimes being remembered is as powerful as any act of saving. The river flowed on, endless and patient, carrying echoes of laughter and sorrow, courage and doubt, mistakes and forgiveness. Finn and Jake listened in silence, letting the rhythm of the water align with their own hearts. Here, at the edge of possibility and memory, they understood that heroism is not always in action. Sometimes it is in presence, in witness, in the quiet understanding of what endures. Above them, the stars reflected on the river, mingling with the moon's pale glow. The garden of echoed smiles, the cave where time slept, the light that learned to wait, all had led them here, to this gentle current of remembrance. The river did not demand anything from them. It simply offered truth in its purest form. Nothing is ever forgotten, everything matters, and love, in all its forms, endures. Finn rose slowly, looking out over the water. "We can't change every past. We can't fix everything. But we can remember. We can honor what was and carry it forward." Jake yawned, stretching one last time.
Sounds like
"The ultimate adventure, bro, remembering. And as the river flowed silently beneath the stars, Finn felt a quiet joy settle into his chest, the kind that comes not from victory, but from understanding, from presence, from knowing that even in worlds where he never saved her, Princess Bubblegum was never truly gone. The river's song faded into the night, leaving Finn and Jake with the gentle hum of eternity. The current continued, patient and unwavering, carrying the world's memory onward while the stars above blinked knowingly, bearing witness to all that had been, all that could have been, and all that would be remembered. The horizon stretched endlessly before Finn and Jake, a soft seam between sky and earth painted in quiet gradients of gold, lavender, and rose. The air was warm, filled with the scent of wildflowers, caramel, and dew, carrying the promise of something long awaited. Even the clouds seemed to pause, drifting lazily, as if the world itself had been holding its breath for this very moment. Pause. They walked side by side along the riverbank, following its gentle curves as it carried the memory of every choice, every laughter, every tear they had ever known. Finn's hands brushed lightly over the tall grass, feeling the soft sway of each blade, sensing the quiet pulse of life that connected the river, the garden, the cave, and every whisper of light they had encountered. The journey had been long, not in distance, but in understanding, a slow unfolding of the world's quiet truths. Jake ambled beside him, eyes flicking between the shimmering river and the distant horizon.
So this is it, huh?
The end of all the what-ifs? Finn smiled faintly, letting his gaze drift across the golden expanse.
Maybe. Or maybe it's just the beginning of knowing them. Every choice we didn't make, every path we didn't take.
It's all part of this moment, part of the world welcoming us back. Pause. The Candy Kingdom lay ahead, faint and glimmering under the soft light of the setting sun. Its towers caught the rays like sugar spun in gold, windows reflecting the hues of the sky. Finn noticed a subtle warmth in the air, a soft resonance of presence, a reminder that even in timelines where he had never saved her, Princess Bubblegum remained, not a memory alone, but a force woven into the very land, resilient and luminous. As they approached the outskirts of the kingdom, Finn felt something gentle stir in his chest. It was not triumph nor relief, but recognition. A quiet acknowledgement that every laughter, every kindness, every moment they had lived and missed mattered. Even absence had purpose, even silence had meaning. Jake stretched, tail flicking with a lazy rhythm. You know,
It's kind of crazy, dude. Even when we weren't there, even when stuff went sideways, everything still found a way to stay alive. Finn nodded.
yeah, that's what I've learned. Heroes aren't just the ones who act. Sometimes they're the ones who remember. They're the ones who carry the world's echoes and let them guide others, let them breathe and live. The wind carried faint scents of caramel and sugar flowers, mingling with the faint hum of the kingdom, and for a moment Finn felt a presence, not visible, yet palpable. Princess Bubblegum, in her quiet brilliance, her patience, her hope, had been part of this journey all along, not as someone to rescue, but as someone whose essence was indelible, whose impact rippled through every corner of the world. Finn took a deep breath, letting the warmth of the horizon fill him. He realized that the kingdom was not just a place of candy and color. It was a reflection of connection, of lives intertwined across time and memory. Each building, each tree, each ripple in the river carried fragments of joy, courage, and love. And he was part of it. Jake was part of it. Bubblegum was part of it. Even the moments that had never been fully lived had shaped the tapestry of everything. He looked at Jake, who grinned sleepily.
Adventure time.
In a new way, Finn said softly. Jake nodded. Yeah, remembering, feeling, being. They walked into the kingdom, their steps light, yet full of the weight of understanding. The streets seemed quieter, gentler, as if waiting to embrace them. Candy towers shimmered with the fading light, rivers of syrup catching the soft hues of the sky, petals of candy flowers releasing the faintest glimmer of perfume. Every surface, every sound, every movement spoke of endurance, of a world that had waited patiently for hearts ready to return. Finn stopped beside a small fountain, its waters catching the last light of the sun. He knelt and dipped his fingers into the cool liquid, watching reflections ripple gently. The images were subtle, laughter shared, smiles remembered, small acts of courage, fleeting moments of connection. And there, amid the reflections, he glimpsed her essence, Princess Bubblegum. Patient, brilliant, enduring, even if I never saved you.
Even if the world was different, Finn whispered, you were always here. And I can carry that.
Always. The water shimmered in response as though acknowledging his words. A soft breeze moved through the kingdom, stirring petals, leaves, and the hearts of those who had waited in shadow and memory. Finn felt a quiet warmth in his chest, a sense of belonging, of closure, and of continuation. The horizon had welcomed him home, not to a place alone, but to the fullness of experience, to the understanding of connection and remembrance. Jake yawned, curling beside him.
So that's it, right? The big what if kinda answered.
Finn smiled, gazing toward the horizon where sun, sky, and land blended seamlessly. Not answered, Jake. Remembered, honored, felt, and maybe that's enough. As darkness fell, the first stars blinked into existence, reflecting softly on rivers, candy towers, and crystal flowers. The kingdom breathed quietly, alive with echoes of all that had been, all that could have been, and all that would continue to ripple across the world. Finn and Jake stood together, letting the horizon fold them into its gentle embrace. In that quiet, under the soft watch of stars and the lingering light of day, Finn understood the truth of their journey. Heroism is not always action. It is presence, it is patience, it is remembering, honoring, and allowing the world to breathe in the fullness of its own story.
And in that understanding, the horizon itself seemed to smile, a gentle, unbroken welcome home.